I was in a plastic chair that squeaked every time I shifted, scrolling through our family group chat like any other Tuesday. I typed, "My surgery is on the 15th. I just need someone to drive me home. Simple, mundane." Then my phone blinked with Heather's reply, "LOL, you actually thought we would miss Cabo for that." A second later, Mom chimed in, "Do not guilt us. This trip has been planned for months." My throat went tight. I typed 2 words. My mistake. I set the phone face down and stopped explaining. That choice saved me in ways I didn't understand yet. Because when a nurse called my mother from the hospital, later that Cabo trip didn't just change, it detonated. My name is Amber Williams. I'm 31, the middle child who triple checks the stove and keeps 3 phone chargers in her bag because I'm the one people text when their battery is dying. I'm the designated driver because I get car sick if I'm not at the wheel and I like knowing where the exits are. Reliable. That's the word my family uses like a compliment and a job title. A few things that matter: my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, makes chai that tastes like calm and worries over me like I'm her second daughter. My mom wears a chunky turquoise bracelet I gave her for Mother's Day. She never takes it off. And there's a nurse with a steady voice who will do something I couldn't do for myself. Picture the waiting room coffee that tastes like cardboard, the hum of a soda machine, a ficus plant with 3 yellow leaves. Outside Chicago, spring was pretending to be warm, and everyone else seemed to have a hand to hold. I had a canvas tote with my sketch pad and a granola bar because that's who I am. I cracked a joke to the receptionist about my nerves squeaking louder than the chair, and she laughed the way people laugh when they don't know what to say next. If you've ever been the responsible one, you know that laugh. It says you look like you have it handled. My sister Heather is the baby sunshine in selfies. My brother Jake is the golden boy with ideas and a knack for making his messes sound like adventures. Mom is a planner who loves an itinerary more than admitting she's wrong. Dad believes in solutions you can hold in your hand. And me, I hold the invisible things. Calendars, reminders, the family group chat when no one else wants to be the bad guy. I wrote the surgery text the same way I write reminders to myself. Clear, short, no drama. Outpatient on the 15th. Need a ride home. When Heather's message landed, it sounded like a joke until it didn't. Mom's follow-up arrived like a stamp on my forehead, "Do not guilt us." The subtext was louder than the words, "You'll be fine. You always are." Here's where I should tell you I pushed back. I didn't. I swallowed, typed, "My mistake," and let the silence ring. Looking back, that silence wasn't weakness. It was the moment the story turned. Here's what I hadn't told them. By the time I sent that group text, I already knew the word. Carcinoma. Dr. Carter had called me in, sat with me, pointed at the grainy bloom on the ultrasound. 4 centimeters right lobe. We need a biopsy. I lay under cold gel while a tech kept her face neutral. The biopsy results came back papillary thyroid carcinoma. Highly treatable, but still cancer. If you're wondering why I texted "need a ride" instead of "it's cancer," it's because history taught me to present small versions of big things. People don't argue with small things. That night, I priced medical transport. $300. I booked it anyway and felt the number burn as it hit my card. I bought applesauce, yogurt, instant mashed potatoes, the soft foods you need when swallowing hurts. I stacked gauze and throat spray on my counter. I filled prescriptions and tucked printouts into a folder labeled post-op. That's who I am, order first. Panic later. This started years ago. When Jake's car died and I had the only savings, I handed it over without asking for a receipt. When Heather borrowed my dress and returned it stained, I learned to remove it and said, "Don't worry." When Paul broke up with me because he couldn't compete with my family's emergencies, I apologized for being too reliable. Every yes was a rehearsal for this silence. Dr. Thompson's consultation was direct. "Given the size, we remove the right lobe, maybe the left if we see more. Who's staying with you those first 72 hours? I said I had it covered. His eyebrow did the math. Alone after anesthesia is not ideal. That's where Christine found me in the hallway. She had the efficient kindness of someone who knows exactly what to do. "I heard you'll be alone. Take my number. Would you like me to speak to your family?" Sometimes people don't grasp the seriousness. I said they were in Cabo like an alibi. She nodded like she'd seen this script before. "This is important," she said. I said no. Pride is expensive. The morning arrived in slow colors. I sipped my last allowed water and checked my fridge list with a pen that clicked louder than necessary. The transport van was white and impersonal. Chicago woke up around us as we drove. At the hospital, the volunteer asked if my husband was parking the car. When I said I came alone, her smile flickered. Hospital policy says someone has to pick you up after anesthesia. I told her transport was arranged. In pre-op, the nurse wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm and asked who was waiting for me. No one, I said. I saw the note appear on my chart. Dr. Thompson reviewed the plan with the calm of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Any questions? How bad is it if I wake up alone? First 72 hours matter. Alone is not recommended. That sentence made something click inside me like a door catching. Christine appeared at my bedside. I heard you're still alone. May I sit? She pulled up a stool. Amber, you are prepared. You're also minimizing how serious this is. It's treatable, yes. It's still surgery near your airway with real risks. I told her about Cabo like it explained something. She didn't flinch. Would you like me to call your mother? People hear the word surgery and think stitches and a nap. People hear the word cancer and they show up. I hesitated. Christine waited me out, letting the silence stretch until it became an answer. Okay, I said. Call her. I gave her the number. I will be clear and kind and firm, Christine said. If she misses the call, I'll leave a message that cannot be misunderstood. I watched her step away, phone to her ear, head-inclined posture, already saying what I could not. The anesthesiologist returned with his checklist. My pager caught a slice of light and flashed a faint reflection. I looked like a person who might do something brave. Christine returned. I spoke to your mother. I explained the diagnosis and the specific risks of the first 72 hours. I told her you have arranged transport and a neighbor check-in and that it's not sufficient. She heard me. The room moved forward after that, hair tucked into a cap, the slow roll toward the double doors. The operating room was colder and brighter. Deep breaths, the anesthesiologist said. Count back from 10. 10. I thought of the small bell on my coffee table, ridiculous and perfect, asking for help with a sound that couldn't be ignored. 9. The volunteer's purple glasses. 8. A flash of turquoise in my mind, the bracelet I'd given my mother. 7. I decided I would stop translating my fear into convenience, and then I let go. I surfaced like swimming through syrup. Beeping first, then the burn in my throat. The air smelled like antiseptic and something sweet from anesthesia. A nurse's voice. Surgery's done, you're safe. Then a weight I didn't expect warm against my hand. The faint powdery perfume I know better than my own. Dark hair with silver threads, the turquoise bracelet resting on the sheet near my wrist. Mom. For a second I thought I was dreaming Cabo into the room, but her eyes were red in a way sunscreen can't explain. Behind her, Dad's jaw clenched like turbulence, Jake, with airport hair and regret. Heather blotting mascara with hotel tissues. Dr. Thompson appeared. We removed the entire thyroid. Both lobes showed involvement, but the capsule was intact. Prognosis is excellent. Mom squeezed my fingers. We're here. We came back as soon as we heard. As soon as we heard. Not when I asked. As soon as a stranger said the word, I couldn't make my mouth say to them. Pattern recognition clicked like a lock I'd been rattling my whole life. Years of me translating emergencies into errands, years of them responding only to sirens they could hear. I reached for the whiteboard with a clumsy hand and wrote, "You knew." Mom read and winced. We didn't, she whispered, and then smaller, we didn't ask. I looked at Christine. She didn't nod or rescue us. She let the gravity hold, I wrote again. You came because she said cancer, not because I said help. Mom nodded without trying to pretty it. You're right, we failed you. The power moved barely, but I felt it. I curled my fingers around the whiteboard marker and wrote, Here is what will happen. 4 sets of eyes lifted like students who didn't study. First, 72 hours, not optional. No Cabo talk, no jokes, no guilt. I drew boxes like a designer laying out a page. If you're staying, you take a job. Mom, you run the pill chart. Dad, transport and stairs. Heather, groceries and soft food. Jake. I let the marker hang in the air, money. You owe me $15,000. Start now. He pulled his phone out like a lifeline. I can move 5 today, set up installments. Christine made them repeat back the timing of pain meds, the calcium protocol, the emergency numbers. This wasn't a bluff. I forced one sentence out, no fixing me while ignoring me. Mom put her palm flat on the bed. I know, I'm listening. I wrote one final line, if you can't do this, say it now. No heroics, no resentment later. Christine glanced at the clock. Do you want social work to order home health as backup? Pride can pay full price. Yes, I wrote. Backup is smart. The ride home was different. Dad warmed the passenger seat. Jake drove carefully. Heather whispered directions like we were in church. At my apartment, they became a machine. Mom found the pill chart and began reading aloud. Jake boiled water for broth. Heather added her hoodie to my laundry without saying a word. Mrs. Patel arrived with chai and kissed the air near my forehead. Good plan, she said, looking at the pill chart. I like plans. The home health nurse came at 8, checked my incision, and had everyone demonstrate their tasks. You're in good shape, she said. Not because it's easy, because you're doing it on purpose. At 2 a.m., my fingers tingled a calcium dip. Heather's alarm went first. She woke Mom, who handed me calcium like a pearl. No panic, no fumbling. I made the third decision. I opened the family group chat and changed the title from Fam Trip Cabo to Amber Care Plan. I pinned the pill chart photo, posted the shift schedule, and wrote the rules. Ask before advice, facts before feelings, no guilt, no disappearing, no turning this into your story. My thumb hovered over send. Old me would have softened it. New me hit send. The first night was choreography, alarms and whispers, and hands that knew what to do. The bell worked. One bright tap and the room lifted its head. Morning smelled like broth and antiseptic. Mom checked boxes with a pen that finally looked like it belonged in her hand. Dad timed my walks. Heather drew a little cat on my whiteboard. Jake sent the first payment without asking if it made a square. Cabo unraveled without a fight. No one mentioned snorkeling. They fussed over my incision instead. Day 3, Mom sat on my bed and said, I'm sorry, without tying it to a reason. Then, do you want me to stay another week? I said yes. She said okay. The follow-up appointment, Dr. Thompson examined my throat and talked through the radioactive iodine plan as if I had a team because I did. The treatment days, Heather drove and learned to love silence. Jake set alarms for quarantine and dropped groceries like offerings. Dad slid notes under my door with the kind of jokes he tells when terrified. When a cousin asked if I was back to normal, I said, no, I'm different, and liked the sound of it. Jake's money started landing on time with simple texts, done. No confetti. He added interest and called it math, not generosity. Mom began therapy. I want to understand the part of me that heard surgery and thought itinerary before daughter. The full circle came in another waiting room with another ficus. This time, I wasn't alone. Dad rubbed circles on my hand without looking like he was doing me a favor. The chair squeaked. I laughed. The sound didn't collapse anything. Christine stopped by after clinic. I made a call, you made a boundary. That's the only reason this worked. Later that night, alone by choice, I stood in my doorway looking at the little bell on the table. The whiteboard wiped clean, the pill chart with its last box checked. The apartment was quiet and not heavy. I realized the transformation wasn't that my family learned to hear sirens. It was that I learned to ring a bell that couldn't be mistaken for background noise and then let the sound carry without apology. The group chat pinged Heather shift trade with Jake tomorrow, got it. Mom alarm set. Dad weather looks clear, I'll drive. I didn't type my mistake. I typed thank you and then nothing else. The quiet that followed wasn't a cliff. It was a soft floor I'd helped build, so self-sufficiency is powerful only when it's a choice, not a costume you wear because no one else will hold the heavy end. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're instructions for how to love you. I used to think being the strong one meant needing nothing. It turns out being strong meant ringing a little bell and letting it be heard. The scar on my throat is a small, honest hyphen between the girl who translated emergencies into errands and the woman who says what she needs and expects follow-through. If you're the reliable one in your family, here's the gentlest dare I can give you. Ask for one specific thing without apology. Don't shrink it. Don't pretty it. Watch what the room does. I keep thinking about 2 sounds that rewired everything. The click of Mom's turquoise bracelet when she said, "We failed you," and the bright ring of that bell when I needed presence. One was an admission. The other was a request. Together they built a bridge I can actually walk on. The ordinary moment at the start was me asking for the least I could imagine. The new equilibrium is me asking for exactly what I need and watching the room move. Truth beats convenience every time, even when your voice is a rasp and your hands shake while you write it on a whiteboard. Story 2. Hi, I'm the granddaughter they tried to erase while my grandfather lay in the ICU fighting for his life. My own parents drained every cent I'd saved, $990,000. Money meant to save him. My sister smirked. We need it more than he does. My father sneered. He should just die and stop wasting resources. I stood there unable to breathe, knowing they had no idea what I was about to do next. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are and where are you listening from? And tell me if your own family betrayed you like this. What would you do? The ring of my phone sliced through the quiet like a sharp blade. It was nearly 10:30 at night, and I was at my kitchen table sorting through invoices for a shipment of cardiac monitors. The leaves outside scraped against the driveway in the October wind. And for a moment, I thought about ignoring the call until I saw the hospital's number. Mr. Thompson, it's Dr. Keating. Your grandfather's condition has changed. His heart's in severe distress. We might need to operate sooner than expected, possibly within the week. The rest of her words blurred, but I caught the urgency in her voice. My chest tightened. I promised Edward years ago after the first heart scare that I'd always be ready. I hung up, reached for my laptop, and logged into the savings account I'd built for him. $990,000 untouched for almost 2 decades. Enough to cover the best care money could buy. The sight of that number always gave me a strange peace, like an anchor. Tonight, it felt like a lifeline. I didn't sleep much. The hospital had him stable for now, but I knew surgery wasn't cheap, and good doctors didn't come cheap either. By morning, I was back at my desk, coffee in hand, logging in again to double-check transfer details. The screen loaded and my breath caught. Balance, 0. I refreshed the page twice. 3 times, same result. I called the bank instantly, my voice shaking. The rep on the line was calm, almost rehearsed. The funds were withdrawn yesterday afternoon, sir. Authorized by your co-signers. Co-signers, yes. Richard and Elaine Thompson, my parents. It felt like the air in the room got thinner. That account was mine, built from years of long hours. Dirty warehouse jobs and side contracts. The co-signer thing. That was from when I was barely 20, working part-time and needing their signature to open the account. I never thought they'd use it. I dialed their number. My mother answered on the second ring, her tone casual. Like we were discussing groceries. Oh, that money. We needed it for something more important. More important, I could hear the disbelief in my own voice. Grandpa in the ICU. That money was for him. Lydia's voice cut in from the background, dripping with satisfaction. We need that money more than he does. He's lived long enough. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. You can't. Just don't be dramatic, my mother interrupted. We're family. We share what we have. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My eyes fell to the small brass pocket watch on my desk. Edwards. The steady tick filled the room. A quiet reminder of the man who taught me how to stand tall. He'd carried it through decades at the steel mill. I ran my thumb over its worn surface the way I used to when I was a boy sitting next to him on the porch swing. By early afternoon, I was in my truck heading toward my parents' house. The drive was familiar. Same cracked sidewalks, same overgrown hedges, but I felt like I was on enemy territory. I stepped inside without knocking. My father was in his recliner TV blaring a game show. He didn't look up. You know, he said flatly he should just die and stop wasting resources. It was the way he said it. Like he was talking about an old appliance that had broken down. No hint of sorrow, no shame, just cold practicality. I stood there, jaw tight, heart pounding. Every word I wanted to say was balanced on the tip of my tongue. But before I could speak, the sound of heavy footsteps pounded against the porch. Then bang! The front door slammed open. A man in uniform stepped inside holding a thick envelope. His eyes swept the room with calculated precision before settling on my father. The color drained from my father's face. He stepped inside, shut the door with a firm click, and the sound seemed to pull every pair of eyes in the room toward him. The TV kept murmuring in the corner, some game show host laughing at a joke no one here found funny. The man in uniform didn't bother introducing himself to me. His gaze never left my father, Richard Evans. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried authority. The way a courthouse clock carries time. My father shifted in his chair, thumb hovering over the remote. Who's asking Daniel McRae? Process service. He held up a leather wallet with his credentials, then extended a heavy envelope. This is for you. Dad didn't take it right away. He looked at my mother as if she could wave it away with a flick of her wrist. She folded her arms and shook her head, a small warning for him to keep his cool. Lydia was already on her feet, curious and smiling like it was gift opening time at a birthday party. You can leave that with me, she said. It goes to Richard, Daniel replied. Patient but firm acknowledgement of receipt, please. Dad finally stood the recliner complaining beneath him and accepted the envelope. His fingers dug into the seam as if he could hurt the paper for daring to arrive in our living room. He didn't open it. He looked at me first, then at my mother again. And only when Lydia said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, just see what it is." Did he slide a finger under the flap? The smell hit me before the words did. Kathy Edwards blend. He used to bring a tin when he stopped by here. Swore it tasted better from that old metal can than anything fresh off a shelf. The scent lingered in this house, the way a hymn lingers after Sunday service for a second. It softened the tightness under my ribs. Then Lydia's voice sliced through it. Is this supposed to scare us? She leaned so close to my father's shoulder. Her hair brushed the page. What does it even say? Ed scanned the first line's color, draining a shade. It's a notice, he muttered. Daniel stepped closer, calm as a courthouse clerk. Formal notification of a pending financial investigation related to withdrawals tied to a protected savings account. Preliminary only, not a lawsuit at this time. It establishes record. Mom made a sound halfway between a scarf and a sigh. This is ridiculous. We're family. Families take care of each other. By emptying the account meant to pay for his surgery. I asked, keeping my voice level. Lydia's eyes met mine, bright with triumph. You're overreacting. It's family money. You're not the only one who cares about Grandpa. If you cared, I said you wouldn't have touched a cent of that fund. She shrugged, like this was all a misunderstanding. He's old. He'd tell us to be practical. She looked to Dad for backup, and he nodded, relieved to have her line to repeat. Daniel didn't flinch. Just so we're clear, Mr. Evans, the notice documents the withdrawal pattern and parties involved. It also references bank security protocol. If the matter escalates, you'll receive further service. Dad puffed himself up as if he could outstare a court date. We haven't done anything wrong. Daniel's expression didn't change. He set a small card on the coffee table, then turned to leave halfway to the door. He paused beside me, voice lowered just enough for me to hear. You might want to talk to the bank again. He said something about the way it was processed off the standard path. The words were simple, but the weight behind them wasn't. He gave the slightest nod, then stepped outside, closing the door with the same clean click he'd used, coming in silence just for a breath. The TV audience clapped for a stranger's jackpot. Lydia laughed softly. I mean, it's music. So a piece of paper. People send those when they want attention. I reached for the envelope and Dad pulled it back like a child grabbing his toy. You made this happen, he said. You couldn't leave well enough alone. What's well enough about draining a medical fund? I kept my focus on him, not her. There was a plan. You knew it. Mom stepped closer. Palms up in false peace. You're not the only one who loves him. We have responsibilities too. Then why take the money reserved for his care? I asked. Why not call me? Why not ask? Lydia scoffed. Because you always say no unless it benefits you. You think you're the only person who's ever sacrificed? Please. I felt the heat rise, the old ache that comes from being told your effort doesn't count. I breathed in the fading coffee. Let it steady me. I've said yes more times than either of you will admit. I said evenly. And that account existed for one purpose, one person. Dad jabbed a finger toward the door as if he could point me out of the house. You're not going to turn this into a circus. We'll handle it. Handle it. I glanced at the notice still trembling in his hand. You just got told you're on record for a financial investigation. That's not me making a scene. That's due process. Arriving on your doorstep. Mom went pale, then red. You drag your own parents through mud. You poured the mud, I said. I'm just refusing to drown in it. Lydia's voice dropped to that sneer she uses when she wants to sound reasonable on the surface and cruel beneath. What are you going to do exactly? You think some bank manager will take your side over ours? We've been with them longer than you've been alive. That wasn't true, and she knew it. But facts weren't the point. Pressure was. I stood straighter. I'll do what I have to for him. Dad set the envelope on the coffee table, flattened it with his palm like he could iron out the meaning. You will not embarrass this family. We'll talk to the bank. We'll make sure they understand the arrangement. Do that. I said because I'm going to talk to them, too. Mom tried one last time to frame this as a misunderstanding. You should rest. You get emotional and make messes. Let us fix this. I thought of Edward's hand on my shoulder the day I signed the first deposit slip. Set it aside, he'd said. And when hard days come, you'll be ready. He trusted me with the plan because I followed through. I wasn't about to stop now. I'll call when I have an update, I said and turned for the door. Don't you dare bring outsiders into this, Dad snapped. You hear me? I faced him. A process server just handed you a notice in your own living room. Outsiders are already in it. Lydia folded her arms chin high. Go ahead, make your little calls. You'll find out. Nothing sticks. That's the thing about the truth, I said. It tends to stick all by itself. I stepped onto the porch where the air held a hint of wood smoke from a neighbor's yard. My fingers traced the edge of the notice through the thin envelope as I slid it into my bag. A record, a timestamp. Something solid in a day that had been anything but behind me. Voices rose then muffled. I didn't linger to decode them. I needed direction, not more noise at the curb. I sat in the driver's seat and let the engine idle. Daniel's quiet warning replayed in my head off the standard path. That could mean bypassed approvals. It could mean a friendly teller slipping paperwork through. It could mean a back office override disguised as routine. If it was a clean withdrawal, someone would have nothing to hide. If it wasn't, a paper trail would breathe, even if people lied. I adjusted the rearview mirror and caught my own eyes. Tired. Yes, but steady. The anger had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. If there was a seam in how they pulled this off, I'd find it and pull until the whole thing unraveled. I put the car in gear, eased away from the house, and let the neighborhood roll past in a blur of maples and mailboxes. The hospital would keep Edward stable for a few more hours. The bank, for once, couldn't wait. Daniel's words echoed in my mind as I drove to the bank. The envelope still clutched in my hand. I parked, took a breath, and walked through the glass door. The smell of polished wood and faintly stale coffee hit me instantly. Susan Hartley, the branch manager, looked up from her desk. When I approached, her usual polite smile faltered as soon as she saw the statement I laid in front of her. What exactly are you asking me to look into? She said, her tone measured. I want a full breakdown of this withdrawal. $990,000. I kept my voice calm, but every word was edged with steel. She glanced at the numbers, then at me. That's significant. Withdrawals like this require in-person authorization, usually from the account holder. Her eyes searched my face for a reaction. I didn't authorize it, I said flatly. Susan hesitated, then leaned back slightly. I'm not supposed to pull security footage without a formal request. But if you're saying this is unauthorized... She trailed off, stood, and gestured for me to follow her in the small back office. The hum of the monitor filled the silence. She tapped the keyboard and a video window popped open. My heart thudded in my ears as the image sharpened. Lydia. Richard sitting in the banker's chairs like they belonged there, signing papers. Lydia's hand swept across the signature line, her eyes flicking down to her phone in between strokes. Richard was relaxed, almost smug, leaning back as if he were watching a show he'd seen 100 times. Susan paused the footage and zoomed in on the form there. She said quietly, my name, my signature line. But it wasn't my handwriting. The loops were wrong. The slant was off to forced too careful. It looked like someone trying to sound out a language they didn't speak. Do you want a copy? She asked. Yes, she printed it out, sliding it toward me along with the statement. I signed the security log to request the footage, my pen catching slightly near the bottom. That tiny pause left a faint ink stain on the page, a quirk I'd inherited from my grandfather, who always did the same thing when writing checks. I stared at it for a moment, the familiarity grounding me. The contrast between that authentic mark and the neat, lifeless forgery lit something in me. This wasn't just theft. It was impersonation. They tried to erase me even from my own bank account. Susan lowered her voice. If this becomes a legal matter, our compliance department will have to testify. Officially, I can't tell you what to do, but you might want to keep that in mind. That was the first time all day I felt like the ground was tilting back in my favor. The bank wasn't my enemy. Not yet. As I gathered the paperwork, Michael, the young teller who'd been at the counter earlier, walked past. He slipped a folded slip of paper into my hand without stopping. I didn't even look at it until I stepped outside into the afternoon sun. 4 words scrawled in rushed handwriting. Check the safe deposit. I stood there for a moment, the city noise dull in my ears. The money was one thing, but if they'd moved it into something else, something harder to trace. This was about to get even uglier. I left the bank with the footage in my pocket and Michael's cryptic note burning in my mind. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to the main branch downtown, the one with the old stone columns and the basement vault. 2 hours later, I was standing in front of the thick steel door that led to the safe deposit room. My palms felt oddly damp. I'd been here dozens of times as a kid with my grandfather holding his hand while he unlocked the heavy door. Back then, it felt like stepping into a treasure cave. Now it felt like walking into an interrogation. Evelyn, the vault attendant, looked up from her desk as I approached. Her glasses were perched at the tip of her nose, and she gave me a polite nod. Afternoon. Name I gave it, sliding my ID across the counter. She typed something into her computer, then reached for a large leather-bound logbook. Flipping through the pages, she stopped, ran a finger down a column, and frowned. You were last here nearly a year ago, but there was another visit just 3 days back. I didn't have to ask Lydia. I said more to myself than to her. Her eyes flicked to mine for a bit before she handed me the clipboard to sign in. That's what it says here. She led me through the chilled hallway, the scent of metal and old carpet lingering in the air. The vault door groaned open, and inside rows of boxes lined the walls. Our family's box had been opened by my grandfather decades ago, his name embossed in neat letters on the original paperwork. The lock clicked as Evelyn inserted the master key, then stepped back so I could use mine. The metal drawer slid out with a dull scrape. I set it on the narrow table and opened the lid. The first thing I saw was an envelope thick cream-colored, sealed in wax, my grandfather's handwriting scrawled across the front for my grandson. Only when the time is right. My throat tightened. I ran a finger over the lettering, but I didn't open it. Not yet. Underneath were several folded receipts. I opened them one by one. They were for gold bullion purchases dated the same day as the $990,000 withdrawal. My stomach sank. The gold wasn't here. I kept going, pulling out smaller boxes. One was a familiar black velvet case. I knew it instantly. Grandfather's gold cufflinks. He wore them at every important family gathering, from weddings to funerals. I opened the case and froze. Only one cufflink was inside. In the empty space lay a crumpled scrap of paper. I unfolded it carefully. A single name and an address were scrawled in uneven ink. An out-of-town storage facility I'd never heard of. I stared at it for a long moment, my mind already moving ahead. If Lydia had the gold moved there, it might still be recoverable. But the fact that she'd left a trail that didn't feel like her style. Evelyn cleared her throat. Technically, without the joint key holder's consent, you shouldn't be removing documents that aren't yours. I slipped the scrap into my pocket anyway. Noted. She didn't stop me, but her eyes lingered, as if weighing whether to say more. I closed the box, slid it back into the wall, and followed her out. The cool air of the basement gave way to the warmer lobby sunlight spilling across the marble floor. Outside, I took a breath, pulled my phone from my bag, and started toward my car. That's when it buzzed. The message was short. You're digging too deep. Stop now or he dies. I stopped cold on the sidewalk, the words swimming before my eyes. They didn't have to name him. I knew exactly who he was. Grandfather still lying in that ICU bed. The text froze me mid-step, the words blurring as my grip tightened on the phone. I ducked into the nearest bench under the hospital's awning, my thumb already hitting call on the ICU's mainline ICU. This is Marjorie speaking. It's about my grandfather. Room for 12. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Is he okay? There was a pause. My heartbeat filled the silence. He's still with us, Marjorie finally said. Vitals are holding, though it's still critical. You can visit during the next window at 4. I exhaled slowly, my grip loosening on the phone. Thank you, I murmured, hanging up. I sat there for a long moment, the threat replaying in my head. I should have called the police. Any sane person would have. But I knew in my gut this wasn't a stranger. This was closer to home. If I tipped my hand too early, whoever sent that text would just dig deeper into hiding. I needed proof, not just suspicion. By late morning, I was on the road following the faded address from the crumpled scrap of paper. The city gave way to scrubland, then a sleepy town with more boarded-up storefronts than open ones. The storage facility sat at the far edge, an aging sprawl of corrugated metal units, half the doors dented, and sunshade a bell above the office door jingled as I stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of motor oil and old paper. Behind the counter sat a man in his 60s flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, reading glasses dangling from a cord. His name tag read Tom. Afternoon, he said, not looking up from the ledger. You here to pay or to empty? I'm here to access a unit, I said, sliding the address toward him. He glanced at it, then back at me, skeptical. Not without the rent or on file or a court order. You got either? Not exactly. I reached into my bag and placed the lone gold cufflink on the counter. This belonged to the person who rented it. His gaze fixed on the cufflink for a long beat. He reached out, turned it in his palm. Haven't seen one of these in well a while. You're related to Walter, my grandfather, I said. Something in his shoulders eased without another word. He reached under the counter, pulled out a ring of keys, and motioned for me to follow. The unit was near the back, the metal door groaning as it rolled upward. A draft of stale air and dust hit me first inside. Rows of wooden chests stood stacked like an odd treasure hoard, each with shipping labels from cities I recognized and some I didn't. Against the far wall sat a rickety table piled with ledgers. I flipped one open, scanning pages of neat slanted handwriting transactions funneled through unfamiliar company names, amounts that made my stomach twist. Then my hand brushed the underside of the table and caught on something. I crouched, prying at a loose panel until it came free. Inside was a small black case. I unzipped it to find a video camera, its battery long dead, and a bundle of SD cards. Each was labeled with a date. One date made my breath hitch, the same day as the $990,000 withdrawal. I didn't even wait to leave the lot, sitting in my truck with the laptop balanced on the console. I slid the card in. The footage was grainy, the angle slightly off, as if the camera had been hidden. Lydia sat at a table across from her father. Her smile wide, a man in a dark suit beside them. They were exchanging papers. Then the man pushed a heavy case across the table. Lydia's voice carried clear enough to sting. He'll never know until it's too late. I replayed it, bile rising in my throat on the second pass. Something else caught my eye, a clipped badge on the suited man's pocket. I zoomed in, squinting. It wasn't a corporate ID, it was a nurse's badge from the same hospital where my grandfather lay, hooked up to machines. The nurse's badge burned in my mind like a warning flare I couldn't ignore. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, I was back at the hospital, moving through the hallways with that hyper-aware edge you get when you know danger is close. But can't yet prove it. The ICU was quieter at night, the low hum of machines mixing with muted footsteps on the polished floor. I took a chair just outside my grandfather's room, pretending to scroll my phone while my eyes tracked every person who stepped in or out. A tall man in scrubs glanced at me and quickly looked away. Two others rolled in equipment each time the door opened. My shoulders tightened. Marjorie came by during her rounds, pausing to check his chart before leaning toward me. "You look like you're counting cards," she said softly, keeping her voice light but her eyes curious. I hesitated. I've got reason to think. Someone connected to the hospital has been in contact with my family in ways they shouldn't be. Her brows knit, but she didn't push. "That's a big claim," she murmured. "I'm not ready to go public with it yet," I said. "But if you notice anything or anyone out of place, I'd appreciate knowing." Marjorie nodded once. "I'll keep my eyes open." She gave my arm a quick squeeze before moving on. I'd barely settled back when the sound of heels clicked down the corridor. Lydia appeared. A bouquet of lilies cradled in her arms, and that polished smile she wore like armor. "Well, well," she said, stepping inside the doorway. "You didn't tell me you'd be here tonight." I stood, keeping my tone neutral. "Didn't think you needed to know." My gaze lingered on the flowers. "Those from the same place you've been storing other things?" Her lips parted, the smile faltering for a split second before she recovered. "I don't know what you're implying." "You do," I said quietly. "And you know I've seen it." She stepped closer until her perfume was cloying in the stale ICU air. "You can't protect him forever," she whispered, her voice just sharp enough to slice through the hum of machines. Then she turned and set the flowers by the bed, brushing past me without another glance. My jaw ached from holding back what I wanted to say. Instead, I crossed the hall to where Marjorie was updating a chart. "Do you know a nurse, tall, maybe mid-40s? Dark hair, works nights." She looked up sharply. Why I think I saw him in a place he shouldn't have been. She hesitated, glancing around before leaning closer. "If it's who I'm thinking, he's on the night rotation. Quiet type, keeps to himself. You might check the staff parking logs. Security keeps records of who comes and goes." It was just past 11 when I slipped out of the ICU and made my way to the far lot where hospital staff parked. I found a shadowed corner near the fence and waited. Camera app ready on my phone. The minutes stretched at 11:45. Movement caught my eye. A man stepping out from the side entrance. The same profile from the video, carrying a medical cooler in one hand. He didn't look around, just walked straight to a plain white van with no markings. I snapped 3 quick photos, zooming in on his face. The cooler, the plates. He slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. I put my hand on my ignition, ready to follow, but before I could shift into gear, a shadow loomed in front of my hood. A broad man in a dark jacket stood there, badge on his belt catching the glow of the lot. Single lamp, his name tag read red. He didn't move. just rested one hand on his belt, his eyes locked on mine. Cold and unreadable. "We need to talk," he said, voice low. Reed's hand stayed on his belt, the weight of his stare pressing harder than the words he'd just spun. I didn't flinch. Instead, I curled my fingers tighter around my camera, the smooth edges warm from my palm. In that moment, it felt like the only thing standing between me and whatever game he was playing. "You're trespassing in a restricted zone." He said, his tone flat like he was reciting a policy he'd used 100 times. I leaned back in my seat, but didn't start the engine. Funny, I thought parking lots were public access. After visiting ours, unless you mean restricted as in you don't want me seeing what just left here in that white van. Something flickered in his expression, quick as a blink. "Watch yourself," he said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. I let the corner of my mouth lift. "Sure. Just know my camera's got a clearer memory than I do, and it might remember a few things the police would find interesting." That was the first crack. He exhaled slowly, scanning the empty lot, then jerked his head toward the far side away from the security cameras mounted on the hospital wall. "Get out of the car. Walk with me." I hesitated, weighing the risk, then stepped out. My sneakers crunching on the gravel, we moved toward the shadow of a service shed, the night air heavy with exhaust and damp asphalt. "I'm not your enemy," he said low, almost like he was convincing himself. "But there are things in the ICU you don't want to be anywhere near. I've seen enough to know it's bad for everyone. You should walk away now." I crossed my arms. "You're telling me to back off while admitting you know something's wrong? That's not how you get someone to listen." He opened his mouth to answer, but the sweep of headlights across the lot made us both turn. An unmarked sedan rolled in slow tires, hissing on the wet pavement. The driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. Suit jacket open. Badge clipped at his belt read. He called, his voice carrying just enough authority to make me straighten. Harper Reed muttered under his breath, as if the name explained everything. The detective's eyes landed on me. "You must be the one poking around?" He didn't ask. It was a statement. "Depends who's asking," I said, keeping my tone even. "I'm the guy who's been chasing a trail of unexplained patient declines for the last 6 months, Harper said. "And I think your friend with the cooler in that van is tied to an organ trafficking ring." My chest tightened. "So it's not just me seeing ghosts in the ICU?" "No," Harper said. "But I can't move without evidence. And from the way Reed's looking at you, I'm guessing you've got something that could help both of us." I pulled the camera from my bag and powered it on. The images from earlier vivid in my mind. "If I give you the photos, you tell me anything that could help keep my grandfather alive?" He nodded once. "Deal." I handed it over. Harper scrolled, thumb steady on the button. Then he stopped, frowning. "Where are they?" "They're there," I said quickly. 3 shots? Face cooler? License plate? "I took them not even 15 minutes ago." Harper turned the camera so I could see the empty gallery. "No photos? Not even the older ones?" My stomach dropped. I swear I began but stopped when I caught Reed watching me. His expression unreadable. "Guess we'll have to catch him again," Harper said calmly, slipping the camera back into my hand. In the act, his tone wasn't impatient. It was measured, like he was already drawing up the next move in his head. A distant siren wailed through the city streets, fading as it moved away. Harper stepped closer, lowering his voice until only I could hear. "Tomorrow night, I'll need you in the ICU at exactly 2:17 a.m. I didn't ask Harper why that exact time. All I knew was I had 24 hours to get my head straight and be ready the next night. The hospital was a different creature, quiet, stripped of its daytime chaos, lit in that pale, unnatural glow that makes every shadow feel longer than it should. I came early, giving myself time to walk the corridors, learn which doors clicked shut on their own and which ones stayed ajar, if you nudged them right. The ICU floor felt like the air had been held too long, still stale and listening. Harper was already in an unused observation room tucked behind a set of double doors. A single desk lamp lit the space, throwing his face half in shadow. "Close it," he murmured, nodding toward the door behind me when it latched. He slid a pen across the table. "Looks ordinary," he said, "but it's recording audio and video. Keep it clipped where it can see straight ahead. Don't play with it. Don't tap it. Just let it run." I clipped it to my jacket pocket, making sure the lens peeked out just enough. My heartbeat felt louder than the hum of the hospital lights. We sat in that room for 15 minutes, saying little. Every creak in the hallway made me think someone had found us already. Harper kept glancing at his watch, not impatient, just counting down. At 2:16, he gave a small nod toward the door. Showtime. We slipped into the corridor just as a gurney came into view, its wheels whispering against the tile. Nurse Dana pushed it steadily, her face calm in a way that made my skin prickle. The patient on it wasn't my grandfather, too young to still, but the IV bag swayed with each push, clear liquid glinting under the lights. Walking beside her was the man from the van. The same easy stride, the same too casual grip on a cooler in his left hand. His scrubs looked fresh, but there was nothing clean about the way his eyes kept flicking toward every corner. I kept a safe distance, letting the pen camera drink in the scene. They reached a side door marked Authorized Personnel Only. The man swiped a keycard and the lock gave a soft click. He pushed the cooler inside first, then guided the gurney after him. From my angle, I caught a glimpse. Stainless steel counters, rows of labeled trays, and a refrigeration unit humming in the back. My stomach turned. Harper started forward, but a sharp electronic beep froze him. The overhead lights in the corridor dimmed, replaced by a slow, pulsing red glow. "Security override," he muttered, pulling his badge from his belt. "They just locked down this section." I edged closer to the doorway, camera still aimed. That's when Dana's head turned. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a second there was no confusion. She knew exactly what I was doing. "Hey," she shouted, her voice ricocheting down the corridor. The suspect's head snapped toward me, then toward Harper, and without hesitation, he abandoned the cooler. The alarms erupted loud enough to rattle the glass in the door, but instead of heading for the nearest exit, he bolted in the opposite direction, straight toward the main ICU rooms toward my grandfather. It took me a beat to register the change in direction. Then I was moving my shoes, hammering the tile, the pen camera bouncing against my chest. Harper shouted something behind me, but all I could hear was the pounding in my ears. I rounded the corner just in time to see the man's shadow stretch across my grandfather's door. My chest burned, my breath tearing out in short bursts. If he reached him first, everything was over. I sprinted after him, my chest burning, because if he reached my grandfather first, everything was over. The ICU door swung wide, the hinges letting out a metallic groan that seemed far too loud. In the silence, I shoved my way in, hard hammering, and there he was, leaning over my grandfather's bed, syringe in hand. His movements were quick, but his eyes were cold, fixed on the IV port like it was a target. Before I could shout, Harper was already on him. The sound of bodies hitting the tile was sharp, followed by the syringe clattering across the floor and spinning until it stopped near my shoes. Harper's weight pinned him down, his voice a controlled growl as he called for security. Two guards rushed in, and in the same breath, another pair came through the opposite door with Nurse Donna in their grip. She didn't fight, didn't speak, just kept her eyes low like she'd already decided there was no way out. I turned back to my grandfather. His eyelids fluttered, and for a fleeting moment his hand found mine. It was weak, barely a squeeze, but it was enough to make my throat tighten. "You're safe?" I whispered, not sure if he could hear me. The rest of the night, blurred into flashing badges, muted radios, and the shuffle of shoes on sterile floors. By dawn, I found myself in the hospital's conference room, seated at a long table with Harper at my side, across from us at the hospital administrator. A couple of detectives, my parents and my sister Dana and the man, were somewhere down the hall in custody. Harper set my pen on the table, pressed a button, and let the footage play. The video showed everything. Dana's steady hands pushing the gurney, the man with the cooler, the swipe of the keycard, and the glimpse inside that cold stainless steel room. Every sound, every glance was there. No one spoke. My parents' faces were unreadable at first, but when Harper shifted to the second clip, the one tying their financial withdrawals to the man's offshore accounts, my mother's eyes darted to my father and my sister's jaw clenched. The administrator cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "There's something you should know," he said, looking at me. "Before he fell ill, your grandfather moved $990,000 into a secure trust under your name. His instructions were explicit. Use it for his care, and no one else is to have access." It was almost comical the way my sister's head snapped toward me, her mouth opening but no words coming out. My father's hands flexed on the table, and my mother stared straight ahead, like maybe if she didn't blink, this wouldn't be real. The administrator slid a set of documents across to me. "Their access to all family assets has been revoked, effective immediately." I signed the treatment authorizations with a steady hand, making sure my grandfather would get the care he needed without delay. When I slid the papers back, I didn't bother looking at my parents. They were already on their feet, leaving without a word. My sister trailed after them, her face pale and tight. Harper stayed behind. "You did more than save him," he said quietly. "This is going to bring down more people than you realize." The room emptied slowly, the chaos of the night settling into a kind of quiet that felt strange after so much noise. I gathered my things, the weight of the pen lighter now that its job was done. Let's say, cause. Walking back to my grandfather's room, I felt the first real breath I'd taken in days. The early sunlight cut through the blinds, painting soft lines across his blanket. I pulled up a chair, sat beside him, and let my shoulders finally relax for the first time in weeks. I wasn't thinking about what they'd taken from me, only what I'd fought to save. Story 3, my name is Elias. I'm 29 and I got married last Saturday. And what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the kind of day you look back on when you're old and gray, the kind of day people tell you will fly by in a blur of laughter, love, and family. And for the most part, it was, except for the gaping empty seats that were meant for the people I loved most. Every time I glanced toward them, I felt that same dull ache in my chest. Here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. Not a single member of my family came. Not my parents, not my sister, not even my best friend Matt, who's been like a brother to me since we were kids. Instead, they all went to my sister's engagement party. Yes, you read that right. My sister Elena scheduled her engagement party on the exact same day as my wedding. After knowing my date for 8 months and my family chose her, it wasn't even subtle. The invites to her party went out 2 months before my wedding with save the date cards that were practically screaming for attention. Gold foil fancy script. Professional photos of her and her fiancé kissing on a rooftop at sunset. Meanwhile, when I sent my invitations, all I got back were short, awkward texts my mom wrote. "We'll have to see if we can make it work, dear." My dad didn't even respond, just sent me a thumbs up emoji. 3 days later, I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it. Elena has always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. She got the bigger bedroom when we were kids, the car on her 16th birthday, and my parents' constant unwavering attention. I was used to playing second fiddle, but I thought naively that my wedding would be different. 2 weeks before the big day, I called my mom to confirm their travel plans. She hesitated for a long moment before saying Eli about the wedding. "Your sister's engagement party is the same day. It's going to be difficult for us to attend both." I laughed at first, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "So you're not coming?" I asked, my voice cracking. "In a way, I hate it. It's just that her future in-laws are flying in from Europe. It's such a rare opportunity to have everyone together," she said, as if that justified skipping my wedding entirely. "Mom, this is my wedding. My one wedding." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You'll understand when you have kids of your own. We just can't be in 2 places at once." I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking so badly. I almost dropped the phone. I didn't tell my fiancée Lila right away. I didn't want to ruin her excitement. But the next few days were a blur of awkward conversations with family members, each one regretfully informing me they couldn't make it. Matt, my best man called me the night before the wedding and said, "I'm really sorry, man, but Elena's party. It's kind of a big deal. I can't miss it." When the day came, I walked down the aisle with a smile plastered on my face, the kind you wear when you're trying to pretend everything's fine. Layla looked beautiful, like something out of a dream. Our friends filled the room with warmth and laughter, and I did my best to focus on them. But every time my eyes wandered toward the empty section of chairs, my chest tightened. The ceremony went off without a hitch, and for a few blissful moments, I forgot the hurt. It wasn't until the reception, just as we cut the cake, that reality came crashing back. My phone sitting on the table beside me lit up with a text from my mom. "We need to talk now." Before I could even process it, the screen filled with notifications. Call after call. 52 missed calls in less than an hour. My hand froze around the cake knife, the laughter around me blurring into a low hum. Lila noticed the look on my face and whispered, "What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the phone, my heart pounding, wondering what could possibly be so urgent that my mother, who hadn't shown up to my wedding, was suddenly desperate to reach me. And then the phone buzzed again, this time with a message that made my stomach drop. It was from my cousin Amelia, the one person in my family who occasionally slipped me bits of truth when the rest of them tried to keep me in the dark. Her message read, "You won't believe what's happening here. Call me when you can, but don't tell anyone I told you." That single line was enough to make my pulse quicken. I didn't reply right away. I knew if I did, she might get pulled into whatever storm was brewing. But the pit in my stomach told me it had something to do with Elena's engagement party. I slipped my phone into my pocket, trying not to let it ruin the moment, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I barely heard the DJ calling for our first dance. I held Layla close, swaying to the music. All I could picture was my parents, my sister, and my so-called best friend, all gathered in some lavish hall sipping champagne and smiling for photos while I celebrated one of the most important days of my life without them. After the dance, I excused myself for a quick bathroom break and stepped outside into the cool night air. The music from the reception hall muffled behind me. I finally called Amelia. She picked up on the first ring. Elias. They're talking about you. She blurted, her voice low like she was hiding in a closet. They're saying you selfishly planned your wedding to compete with Elena's big day. Your mom's been telling people you did it on purpose. I froze. What? That's insane. I announced my date months before she even got engaged. I know, Amelia said quickly, but they're making it sound like you wanted to upstage her and get this. Your dad's been telling her fiancé's family that you're not very close to the family anymore. So it's understandable that none of them came. My mouth went dry. They're rewriting the story while it's happening. That's not all, she continued. Matt's here. He's been going around saying he couldn't be your best man because you were being difficult about the guest list. Like he's making it sound like you didn't even want him there for a moment. I couldn't speak. Matt, the guy I've shared every major milestone with, standing there in my sister's engagement party, trashing me to people I barely know. Amelia hesitated before adding, and your mom's calling you because, well, I don't know the whole thing, but apparently she needs you to fix something for Elena tonight. She said it's urgent. That's why she's been calling so much. The absurdity of it hit me like a slap. They skipped my wedding to go to my sister's engagement party, and now in the middle of my reception, they needed me to fix something for her. I wanted to hang up and walk back inside. Pretend I'd never heard any of it, but I couldn't shake the anger clawing up my throat. My entire life, this was the pattern. They'd hurt me, make me the villain in their story, and then come to me when they needed something. And I'd always given in because they were my family. But that night, standing outside in the dark with the faint sound of clinking glasses and laughter from two different celebrations miles apart, I felt something shift. I didn't tell Lila yet. I didn't want to ruin her night with my family's drama, but the weight of it sat heavy in my chest. When I walked back inside, the room was alive with music. Friends were dancing. And for a brief moment, I let myself smile. But every so often, I'd feel my phone buzz again. Another call, another text. My mom's name flashing across the screen like a reminder that the people who should have been there for me had chosen someone else and still expected me to drop everything for them. By the time the night ended, I had 68 missed calls, and the last voicemail they left made my hands curl into fist. When Lila and I finally got back to our hotel suite that night, we were exhausted. The kind of tired that comes from smiling for hours while your heart is quietly breaking. I was just about to toss my phone onto the dresser and forget about it until morning when I saw a new text from Amelia. It wasn't a paragraph this time, it was just a photo. I tapped it open and my stomach turned. They're in crisp, high-definition clarity. Was my sister Elena standing at her engagement party wearing my late grandmother's wedding necklace? It wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was the one heirloom I'd been promised since I was a teenager. My grandmother had pulled me aside when I was 19, just before she passed, and told me, Eli, this is for the woman you marry. I want her to wear it on your wedding day. She even wrote it in her will. That necklace had been in a velvet box in my mother's safe for years, and when I asked about it a few months ago, Mom told me, oh, it's not in good condition anymore. Best not to use it. Now here it was, glittering around Elena's neck, matching perfectly with her designer dress. And the worst part, in the background of the photo, I saw Matt, my best friend, smiling next to her, holding a glass of champagne. I just sat there, staring at it, my pulse in my ears while I noticed my expression. What is it? She asked softly. I hesitated. We've made a pact to keep the day about us, not my family's nonsense. But as I showed her the photo, her jaw tightened. That's the necklace your grandmother left for you. I nodded. My voice was tight. My mom told me it was damaged. She lied. She gave it to Elena for her engagement party. Layla sank onto the bed, her hands curling in her lap. Eli, that's not just disrespectful, that's theft. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Another call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. I put it on speaker. Her voice filled the room, cheerful at first, then sharp. Elias, I don't know why you're not answering. Elena had a little problem tonight. The caterer overbooked, and we're short on a few things. We need you to call in a favor with that restaurant. You know, the one in town. And, oh, by the way, I gave her grandma's necklace so she could wear something meaningful tonight. Don't make this a big deal. It's just a piece of jewelry. Call me back now. I think that was the moment something in me truly snapped. It wasn't just the absence at my wedding. It wasn't just the gossip and the lies. It was that she could take something so deeply personal, something tied to my grandmother's memory, and hand it over to my sister like it was nothing. The weight of that betrayal sank in slowly like ice spreading through my chest. All those years of swallowing my pride, of telling myself they didn't mean to hurt me, of making excuses. It hit me that they never saw me. Is worth protecting. Not even on the most important day of my life. I sat there in silence for a long time, phone still in my hand, before setting it down. My mind was already starting to move past the shock, past the hurt, and into something colder, sharper. This time, I wasn't going to just let it go. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, but it felt muted, like the world had dimmed a little. Lila was still asleep beside me, her hand curled loosely around mine, but my mind was far from the quiet warmth of that moment. I checked my phone. The barrage hadn't stopped. 93 missed calls, now 22 voicemails, and dozens of texts. Some from my mom, some from my dad. A few, even from distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Most of them saying the same thing. You need to call your sister. Not congratulations on your wedding. Now we're sorry we couldn't be there. Just orders. Demands and guilt-laced messages that made my stomach twist. I finally played another voicemail. This one from Dad. His tone was clipped, almost annoyed. Elias, I don't know what's gotten into you, but ignoring your family on a night like this is childish. We were hoping you'd be more mature now that you're married. Call your mother back and do the right thing. The right thing. As if they had done the right thing by me. That day should have been filled with brunches, laughter, and retelling the best moments from the night before. Instead, I spent it with an ache in my chest and a fog in my mind. We went for a quiet breakfast at a little cafe near the water, and though Lila tried to keep the conversation light, I could see the way her eyes searched mine, worried. When we got back to the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the small overnight bag I'd packed for the wedding. Among the neatly folded clothes was an empty velvet box. My grandmother's necklace box. I brought it with me thinking I'd surprise Layla with the real thing. But when my mom told me it was damaged, I'd tucked it away instead. Now it felt like a cruel reminder of just how little my family respected me. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But the tears didn't come. Instead, there was this hollow, gnawing space inside me where something used to be. And in that emptiness, tiny threads of thought began weaving together. Quiet. Subtle but persistent. I didn't tell Layla yet, but I started saving screenshots. Every text from my parents, every photo. Amelia sent me from that engagement party. Every voicemail, especially the ones dripping with manipulation. I backed them up one by one into a folder on my laptop labeled "Simply for later that afternoon while Layla took a nap." I sat in the hotel lobby with my laptop open, pretending to scroll through honeymoon destinations. In reality, I was looking up the exact terms of my grandmother's will. The one that specified the necklace was to be mine. I still had a scanned copy saved from years ago when I'd helped my grandmother with paperwork. And there it was in plain language. I leave my wedding necklace to my grandson Elias Harper to be given to his bride on the day of their wedding. It hit me then that what my mother had done wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally questionable. But I didn't slam the laptop shut or call anyone to confront them. I knew better. If I lashed out now, they'd spin it the same way they always did. Elias is overreacting. Elias is ungrateful. Elias is making a scene, so I smile politely when the hotel staff congratulated us. I posted one carefully chosen wedding photo online, ignoring the dozens of texts from relatives asking why I wasn't addressing the situation. I kept my head down, outwardly calm, while inside something sharper and colder than I'd ever felt before was taking shape. They thought they'd gotten away with it. I was about to make sure they never saw it coming. When Layla and I returned from our short honeymoon a week later, my focus shifted. Instead of drowning in that hollow feeling, I poured myself into the things I could control: my marriage, my career, and the life we were building without my family's approval hanging over it. The first change was at work. I'd been a mid-level project manager at a fast-growing marketing firm, good enough to be respected, but never loud enough to be noticed by the higher-ups. That changed quickly. I stayed late, volunteered for projects nobody wanted, and within 3 months, I landed a major client that boosted our department's revenue by nearly 40%. The CEO personally thanked me in front of the entire company and promoted me to director. With the new role came a significant salary increase, and I started investing seriously. I'd already been dabbling in real estate for a few years, but now I had the resources to buy not just 1, but 3 rental properties in prime areas. Within a year, the passive income from those alone rivaled my salary. Layla and I bought a house on the edge of the city, modern, sunlit, with a home office that overlooks the river. Our social circle grew too. Without the constant negativity from my family, there was more space for genuine friendships. We hosted dinner parties, weekend getaways, and charity events through Layla's art network. People we met saw us for who we really were, not as the afterthought in a family hierarchy, but as a couple who had built something of their own. It was during one of those events, a fundraiser at our home, that I realized how far I'd come. Standing in the living room, glass of wine in hand, I overheard two guests talking about how Elias just seems to have it all together. I smiled to myself. They had no idea how much of that came from deciding to step back from the people who constantly tried to pull me down. Meanwhile, Amelia and I kept in touch quietly. She'd give me small updates here and there. How Selena's wedding planning was spiraling into chaos, how my parents were grumbling about how distant I'd become, and how Matt had started showing up at family gatherings acting like nothing had happened. I never engaged. I never defended myself. The silence worked in my favor. They had no fuel for their drama, no fresh outbursts to twist into their version of events. And all the while, I was documenting, saving receipts, photos, and every little piece of proof that painted the full picture of what they'd done. One afternoon, almost a year after my wedding, I got an email from a national business magazine. They wanted to feature me in a piece about young professionals who had achieved financial independence before 35. The feature came with a glossy photo shoot and an interview about my investments, career growth, and philanthropy. When it hit newsstands, I knew my family saw it. Amelia confirmed it. My mother apparently bought 3 copies just to see if it was really him, and still I heard nothing from them. No. Congratulations. No acknowledgement. Just silence. The kind that's heavy with pride swallowing and quiet resentment. I wasn't looking for their approval anymore, but I knew deep down that my growing success was setting the stage for something bigger. Because the necklace, the lies, the missed wedding, they weren't forgotten. And the next move I was planning would make sure they never forgot them either. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, nearly 18 months after my wedding. I was at my desk reviewing contracts for a new commercial property I was buying, when an email from Amelia popped into my inbox. The subject line was short but loaded. "I thought you'd want to see this." Attached was a PDF high-resolution scans of the inventory list from my grandmother's estate, complete with signatures. The necklace was there, clear as day, with my name next to it, as the designated inheritor. But that wasn't the part that caught my attention. At the bottom of the document was a set of signatures, including my mother's, and a note that read, "Released to Elena Harper for temporary use June 15th, to be returned to rightful owner." Temporary use. The date June 15th was the night of Elena's engagement party, which meant my mother had on paper acknowledged that the necklace was mine. And now, nearly 2 years later, she had still not returned it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, my pulse quickened. This wasn't just an emotional betrayal anymore. This was a written, legally binding acknowledgement. That same week, fate handed me another card. Through work, I had started collaborating with a high-profile event planner who specialized in luxury weddings and galas. Over coffee one afternoon, she casually mentioned that she had just booked a massive wedding for a client with ridiculous demands. Bride's name is Elena Harper. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. Elena's wedding was happening in 6 months, and from the sound of it, it was going to be big, lavish, expensive, and very, very public. The planner, not realizing the connection, went on about how the venue was an exclusive estate, the kind you had to book years in advance, and how the bride wanted everything perfect for the family image. Family image. It was almost too perfect. I now had 2 things, undeniable proof. The necklace belonged to me, and insider knowledge about the single most important event of my sister's life. And unlike my wedding, her big day was going to be packed with extended family business connections and media coverage. I started making quiet moves. I hired a discreet but highly skilled attorney, not to send a lawsuit yet, but to review the will, the signed release document, and every scrap of evidence I had saved since my wedding day. He confirmed what I suspected. I had a strong legal case to reclaim the necklace, and if I wanted to, I could pursue damages for wrongful withholding of inherited property. But I wasn't ready to file anything yet. Timing was everything. I also began attending more networking events in the city, subtly expanding my circle into areas I knew overlap with my family's business leaders. They admired journalists who covered society weddings, even the owner of the estate where Elena's wedding was scheduled to take place. I never mentioned my connection to her. I just made sure I was in the right places, shaking the right hands, making the right impressions. By the time spring rolled around, I wasn't just in a better position than I'd ever been. I was in a position of quiet influence, and the people I was now connected to, they'd be at Elena's wedding. The final piece fell into place when Amelia called one night, her voice low. "Eli, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Mom's been bragging about how she's keeping the necklace safe for Elena to wear on her wedding day. She says you don't care about family traditions anymore, so it's better off with her." I thanked Amelia, hung up, and sat in silence for a long moment. The stage was set. The date was locked. The audience was guaranteed, and for the first time in years, I felt the old ache in my chest start to fade, replaced by a calm, steady certainty. When my move came, they wouldn't just lose the necklace. They'd lose the narrative they'd spent their whole lives building. The day of Elena's wedding dawned warm and bright with the kind of golden light photographers dream about. I woke early, not because I was invited. I wasn't, of course, but because the plan I'd been building for over a year was finally going into motion. I spent the morning in my home office going over the folder on my desk one last time. Inside were neatly organized documents, my grandmother's will, the signed temporary release paper with my mother's signature, dated photos of the necklace at Elena's engagement party, and correspondence from my attorney. The last page was the piece de resistance, a formal letter addressed to the wedding's venue owner, the event planner, and, most importantly, Elena herself. It was an official demand for the immediate return of the necklace to its rightful owner, citing legal clauses and including a clear warning about the consequences of noncompliance. The timing was critical. My attorney, a calm, polished man named Vincent, was scheduled to hand-deliver these documents at the venue at precisely 3:15 p.m., just as guests would be arriving and a pre-ceremony photos were beginning. But that was only part of it. In the weeks leading up to this day, I'd quietly tipped off a lifestyle journalist. I'd befriended someone known for covering high society events, but with a knack for sniffing out the drama under the glamour. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to pique her interest at a certain heirloom necklace. Being worn today wasn't actually in the bride's possession legally. She'd done her own digging, confirming my name was attached to the inheritance record. She promised nothing, but I knew her type. If something happened at the wedding, she'd be ready at exactly 3:15. My phone buzzed. It was Vincent. "It's done," he said simply. "And Elias, your sister, didn't take it well through Amelia, who was texting me under the table from the bridesmaid suite. I got the play-by-play." Apparently, Vincent's arrival with the documents had caused a ripple through the wedding staff. The event planner read the letter, went pale, and immediately pulled Elena aside. My mother tried to brush it off, saying it was just a misunderstanding. But when Vincent pointed to the signed release and Will, the planner, quietly reminded them that hosting an event with disputed property could open the venue to liability, which meant in no uncertain terms, Elena couldn't walk down the aisle wearing that necklace. Amelia's text came rapid fire. She's screaming at Mom in the dressing room. Matt's trying to calm her down, but she just threw a hairbrush at him. Oh my. They're taking the necklace off right now. And then the one that made me lean back in my chair. Satisfied. The photographer just packed up the jewelry shots. She's in tears. I didn't post anything. I didn't gloat. I simply waited. By 6 p.m., the first whispers had already started circulating online. Grainy photos of a tense-looking bride without her signature piece, accompanied by vague captions about last-minute changes and family disagreements. The journalist I'd tipped off posted a short but loaded article the next morning. The missing heirloom, the quiet drama behind yesterday's lavish Harper wedding. The article didn't paint me as a villain. It didn't have to. It simply laid out the facts, quoted the will, and ended with the line, "The necklace is now back in the rightful possession of the grandson." It was intended for which, of course, it was resting in the velvet box on my desk where it had belonged all along. The calls from my parents started almost immediately after the article went live. I didn't answer because this time the silence was mine to give. The fallout was faster and harsher than I expected. By the end of that week, the story had been picked up by a couple of other local outlets. Nothing huge, but enough to make its way through the social circles. My parents valued most people who had always fawned over them at fundraisers, suddenly had other plans. Elena's new in-laws, who had been proud to marry into what they thought was a polished, respectable family, were furious that her wedding had been tainted by public embarrassment. Amelia told me in hushed phone calls how the tension in their house had turned suffocating. My mom blamed my dad for not handling it quietly. My dad blamed my mom for signing the release document in the first place. Elena, meanwhile, had been trying to spin the narrative online, posting old photos of herself in the necklace from her engagement party captioned with vague quotes about family meaning more than property. But the comments under her posts told a different story. People were asking uncomfortable questions. Some even tagged me saying they were glad justice had been done. Matt, my so-called best friend, didn't escape unscathed either. He'd been one of Elena's loudest defenders after the engagement party. But the article made it clear he lied about my supposed guest list drama. Several mutual friends cut him off completely when I ran into him months later at a networking event. He couldn't even make eye contact. The necklace stayed in my possession exactly where it was meant to be. But it had become more than just an heirloom now. It was a symbol, a reminder that I didn't have to play by their rules anymore. I didn't need their approval, their invitations, or their version of the truth to define me. I never spoke to my parents again after that. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I realized there was nothing left to say. They made their choice the day they skipped my wedding. All I'd done was make sure the world saw it for what it was. A year later, on our anniversary, Lila wore the necklace for the first time. We went out to dinner, just the two of us, in a quiet corner of the city, as the light caught the gold and diamonds. I thought of my grandmother, how she'd wanted this for me, and how it had taken nearly losing everything to finally claim it. While it caught me looking at her and smiled. Feels like it's home now, doesn't it? I nodded, not needing to say more, because the truth was simple. They had taken themselves out of my life, and I had finally closed the door behind them. And I didn't just lock it, I threw away the key. I thought the necklace would be the last chapter. A year after our quiet anniversary dinner, Lila in a navy dress, the heirloom catching city lights, I'd stopped checking my parents' social media out of habit. We built a life that felt like ours: weekend hikes, a sunlit office overlooking the river, a calendar full of people who actually showed up. Then two things landed the same week. The first was a certified letter. Cease and desist. My father's lawyer wrote, accusing me of defamation for publicly humiliating Elena at her wedding. Vincent skimmed it, snorted, and slid it back across my desk. They put their signatures on a temporary release, he said. Truth isn't defamation. We'll reply politely with exhibits attached. The second was a call from Amelia at 11:42 p.m. Elena's in trouble, she whispered. Her husband's company, there's an investigation. Wire fraud. Their accounts might get frozen. Mom's telling everyone you'll help it for the sake of family. I stared out at the river's black glass. Old reflexes, fix it, mediate, make peace, twitched like phantom limbs. Then I remembered who I'd become the night I put the phone face down and chose silence. What does Elena want? I asked. Amelia hesitated. I think she wants you. 2 days later, Elena showed up at my office without calling. No ring, no entourage, no perfectly staged smile. Just a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in a week. 5 minutes, I told the receptionist, then led her to a small conference room with a view of the water. She didn't sit. I know you hate me, she blurted, but I need your help. I don't hate you, I said. I just don't trust you. She flinched. Then everything spilled out: the fiancé, now husband, with immaculate suits and creative accounting, the investors asking the wrong questions, the in-laws who suddenly cared less about Instagram and more about subpoenas. Somewhere in the middle, she broke palms on the table, tears hitting the wood. I wore the necklace because Mom insisted, she said hoarsely. She said it would bind the families. She said you wouldn't make a fuss if it was already around my neck. I let her decide my wedding the way she's decided my whole life. And then you took it back, publicly. She managed a thin, almost bitter smile. You were right to. Silence expanded between us. Somewhere outside the glass, a gull skimmed the river and rose again. What do you want from me, Elena? I asked. I don't want money. She swallowed. I want a chance to fix what I broke, and I need a lawyer who isn't Mom's. Vincent. Maybe I want him to represent me, not them. I studied her. For the first time in years, she looked like a person, not a performance. 3 conditions, I said. First, you tell the truth. Publicly. About the double-booked dates, the necklace, the lies at your engagement party. Second, you apologize to Lila directly, privately, no cameras. Third, you cut Mom out of your decisions. Not forever, maybe, but now. Elena nodded before I finished. Done. Not done now, I said. Done when it's done. She wiped her eyes and finally sat there. That night, I told Lila everything. She listened, elbow on the back of the couch, chin in her hand, eyes steady. Help her, she said, but protect us first. Vincent met Elena the next morning. He was clinical, thorough, and in the way only good lawyers can be, kind without pity. He reviewed documents, explained her actual exposure, and made it clear he represented her alone. When he left, Elena turned to me. Thank you, she said softly. Don't thank me yet. 2 weeks later, Elena posted a simple, unpolished video on her barely filtered account. No glam lighting, no soundtrack, just honesty in a living room that looked like a human lived there. I scheduled my engagement party on my brother's wedding day, she said. I knew. I justified it. I hurt him. I also wore a necklace that wasn't mine. I told myself it was family tradition. It wasn't. It was theft and entitlement, and my refusal to see him as a person outside our family's story about him. I'm sorry, Elias. I'm sorry, Lila. The comments split as the internet always does. Some called it accountability. Some called it PR. I didn't read them for long. I didn't need a jury. Elena came to our house the next evening. No camera, no audience. She handed Lila a handwritten letter and handed me a small velvet pouch. I found these in Mom's safe, she said. Inside were the necklaces, matching earrings, pieces I didn't know existed. Grandma's set. All of it should have been yours to give. Lila hugged her first. I shook her hand. Progress looks different on different days. My parents escalated. The cease and desist became a threat to pursue all remedies. Vincent responded with a draft complaint of our own, quiet, surgical, unimpressed. He copied their counsel and the estate attorney who'd notarized the temporary release. He didn't bluster. He didn't need to. They went silent. Life filled in around the edges. Lila's gallery show exploded. The new client I'd chased for 6 months signed. Our weekends became a blur of friends, paint-stained dropcloths, and dinners that ran late. Some nights we talked about kids. Some nights we talked about nothing. On a rainy Friday, Matt texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the name for a long minute. Then I typed, "Write it." "Don't call?" The message came in fragments, like someone afraid the next sentence might erase the last he'd lied because being near my family made him feel important. He'd chosen access over friendship. He didn't expect forgiveness. He just wanted me to hear him take responsibility. I didn't respond. Sometimes closure is a door that stays closed. Spring rolled towards summer. Elena's husband accepted a deal that kept him out of prison, but out of certain boardrooms forever. Elena got an actual job at a nonprofit that helped small businesses straighten out their books. She sent spreadsheets to Vincent sometimes just to show my work. He sent back short notes that said, "Good. Keep going." Then my mother tried one more time. She showed up at a charity gala Lila and I co-hosted for arts education. Black dress, tight smile. The kind of perfume you can smell before you see the person. She waited until Lila stepped away to speak with a donor, then peeled from the crowd and blocked my path like we were back in a kitchen, and I was 16 with mud on my shoes. "Elias," she murmured, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "You've made your point. Enough now." I had learned to measure my breath. "What point do you think I made?" "That you can hurt us," she said. "That you can embarrass us. That you can take things." I thought of the empty chairs at my wedding. The voicemail telling me to do the right thing. The necklace gleaming on a neck that wasn't my wife's. I thought of Lila, who had poured grace into places my family never left room for. "I didn't hurt you," I said evenly. "Consequences did." Her mouth opened closed. She tried again. "Your sister misses you. Your father's blood pressure." "Stop," I said. "This is a boundary, not a punishment. You're not welcome in our lives unless you can apologize without a but and repair without an audience. If you ever figure out how you know how to find me. If not, this is me wishing you peace." From a distance. Lila returned, then slipped her hand into mine and smiled at my mother like a queen granting a pardon to someone she didn't plan to see again. We walked away. That summer, we hosted a small dinner on our back deck. Amelia came with a goofy guy who adored her. Elena came late and left early, but she came at all, and that mattered. At dessert, I stood palms sweaty and looked at Lila. 2 things I said. First, there's a new program we're launching, the Ruth Harper Fellowship. We gave Grandma's first name to the scholarship. It felt right for first-gen students studying finance or art. In Grandma's honor, and in honor of anyone who wasn't invited to a table and built their own. Applause, clinking forks, Lila's eyes shining. Second, I swallowed hard, hammering, "We're expecting." For a beat, there was silence, the kind that drops when joy outruns words. And then the table burst, cheers, elbows, napkins thrown into the air like tiny flags of surrender to happiness. Elena covered her face and laughed into her hands. Amelia stood to hug us both, knocking over her water and not caring. That night, after dishes and bad singing and a blanket around the 2 of us on the deck, I went inside and opened the safe. I lifted the necklace, thumb tracing the smallest stone the way I had a year before in a dim restaurant. "I wish you could see this," I told the empty room, and felt for once like she did. Months later, our daughter arrived in a storm that blew out power on half the block and brought our neighbors' generators humming like a choir. She was fierce and loud and perfect. We named her Lena, close enough to honor, far enough to reclaim. My parents sent flowers. We didn't respond. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks you control. Maybe one day there'd be a knock I could answer. Maybe not. It would be my choice. On our first night home, while the baby slept between us, and the city softened under rain, Lila reached across the tiny bundle and touched the necklace at my collarbone. I'd worn it like a promise rather than a possession. "Feels like it's home now," she whispered. It did. Not because I'd won anything. Because I'd finally stopped playing a game I never had to play. I turned off my phone, slid it into the drawer, and laid my palm over my daughter's chest. Her heartbeat thudded small and sure. Somewhere distant, far beyond our window, old narratives kept spinning. Let them. We were writing a new one. Story 4, "You're dead to us. Don't ever crawl back here again." My mom texted days after I refused to cover my sister's $85,000 business program. I said, "You just slit your own throat." Then I cut off their $1 million gravy train, and now they're begging like their lives depend on it. Holy crap. Read it. I never thought I'd be posting here, but after what happened 8 months ago, I need to get this off my chest. My buddy Alex convinced me to share this story because he says it's the most epic family revenge he's ever witnessed. Buckle up because this gets absolutely wild. I, 32 male, and I own a mid-sized construction company that specializes in commercial building projects, started with just me and a pickup truck 7 years ago. Now I've got 52 employees and we pulled in 14.2 million last year. Not bragging, just setting the scene for why my family thought I was their personal ATM. My family dynamic was always complicated and honestly pretty dysfunctional looking back. Dad, Rick 58 male, runs a concrete supply business that's been struggling for years, mostly because he refuses to modernize or adapt to industry changes. He's stubborn as a mule and thinks technology is the enemy. Mom, Carol, 55 female, has this boutique real estate agency that looks super fancy with a marble counters and expensive artwork but barely breaks even. Most months she spends more on maintaining appearances than actually generating sales. My sister Madison, 28 female, is a professional Instagram influencer who calls herself an entrepreneur but has literally never earned a legitimate dollar in her life. Her idea of work is posting photos of overpriced coffee and designer handbags while spouting motivational quotes she found online. When my construction business really took off about 5 years ago, I started helping the family out. Dad needed new equipment. I'd co-sign loans. Mom's real estate office needed cash during slow seasons. I'd wire $50,000 without thinking twice. Madison wanted to start her luxury lifestyle brand. Sure, here's $75,000 to get started. My business partner Alex always gave me grief about it. Dude, you're running a family welfare program, he'd say during our morning meetings. When's the last time any of them actually thanked you? Honestly, I couldn't remember. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't just helping out occasionally when they had small problems. I had systematically become the financial backbone holding their entire world together like some kind of invisible support structure they took completely for granted. Dad's concrete business was operating entirely on my business credit lines because he couldn't qualify for his own. After some serious tax issues from 2000 involving unreported cash payments. Mom's boutique agency was paying rent through automatic transfers from my company account transfers she thought were coming from some mythical family trust fund our grandfather supposedly set up. Madison's entire lavish lifestyle, the downtown loft with city views, the white BMW, the endless designer, everything was funded by what she believed was a family investment account, but was actually just me sending her $4,500 every single month like clockwork. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Madison calls me on a Tuesday morning. Doesn't even say hello. Just launches into Jake. I need you to cover something important for me. Turns out she'd been accepted into this exclusive business mentorship program in Los Angeles. The cost $85,000 for 6 months of networking with industry leaders and mindset coaching. Here's the thing though. We were in the middle of our biggest expansion yet, and I'm talking about serious growth that would determine our company's future for the next decade. I just hired 15 new employees, including 2 project managers, 3 site supervisors, and a whole crew of skilled workers. We were also financing a massive equipment purchase that was costing us nearly 200,000 new excavators, concrete mixers, and specialized machinery that would let us take on bigger commercial projects. Cash flow was genuinely tight. Not because we weren't profitable, we were crushing it, but because every available dollar was strategically invested into growth initiatives that would secure our future and potentially double our revenue within 2 years. So, for the first time ever, I told her something I'd never said before. Madison, I can't swing that right now. The business is expanding rapidly, and I've got serious payroll commitments. Maybe in a few months we can revisit this. The silence on the phone was deafening. Then she explodes. Are you serious right now? After everything this family has done for you? I'm thinking, what exactly has this family done for me? But before I could respond, she hits me with, you know what, Jake, success has made you selfish. Don't bother calling me back until you remember what family means. She hung up on me. That was Tuesday. Thursday night, I'm at home with my wife, Sarah, finally relaxing after a 14-hour day managing 3 different job sites when my phone buzzes. Text message from Dad. You're no longer my son. Don't contact us again. I swear I stared at that message for 20 minutes straight, called Alex immediately. What the heck happened? He says when I read him the text. Over 85 grand. Are you kidding me? Friday morning, there's an envelope slipped under my front door. No return address. Just my name written in Mom's handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper. You are not welcome at family events. Do not come to the house. That's when Alex came over and found me sitting in my kitchen, just staring at this note, like it was written in a foreign language. Bro, Alex says, sitting down across from me, you realize what this means, right? What they just declared war on the wrong guy. Alex has been my best friend since we were 14 and started working construction jobs together every summer. when I decided to start my own company. He was the first person I called. He's got this incredible ability to see through people's nonsense and find humor in even the darkest situations, which is probably why we've been business partners for so long. All right, Alex says, setting up his laptop at my kitchen table Friday evening. Let's talk facts here. How much money have you actually given these people over the years? I pulled up my accounting software and we started going through the records. The numbers were honestly shocking even to me. Dad's business, $340,000 and loan guarantees plus about $180,000 in direct cash loans that were never repaid. Mom's real estate agency, $290,000 over 3 years in temporary cash flow assistance. Madison's lifestyle, $216,000 and direct transfers. Plus, I'd been covering her rent, $2,800 monthly and car payment, $830 monthly for the past 2 years. Good grief, Jake, Alex says, nearly choking on his coffee. You've given them almost $1 million, $1 million, and they disowned you over $85,000. But here's where Alex really proved his worth as a friend and business partner. Dude, you realize they don't actually understand how their own finances work, right? Like Madison probably thinks her rent gets paid by magic. He was absolutely right. In all my years of supporting them, none of them had ever asked for details about how the money flowed. They just assumed it appeared when they needed it. So what do you want to do? Alex asks, leaning back in his chair. I want to show them what not my son actually looks like. Alex grins. Now you're talking. But we're going to do this intelligently. No emotional decisions, just cold, hard business logic. Saturday morning, Alex shows up with coffee and a legal pad. All right, brother, time for some financial reality, but first, we're going to protect you legally from any blowback. We spent the entire weekend systematically mapping out every single financial connection I had with my family. And honestly, it was like discovering an iceberg. The surface stuff was just the beginning. The web was way more extensive and complicated than even I had realized. After years of gradual involvement, Dad's concrete business wasn't just getting occasional help. It was essentially operating as a subsidiary under my commercial credit lines because his personal credit was completely destroyed. The company trucks, the equipment leases, even the liability insurance were all flowing through my business credit. His employee health insurance was subsidized through my company's group plan because his business couldn't afford decent coverage on its own, and I'd been quietly covering the difference for 3 years. Mom's real estate office situation was even more complex than I'd remembered. The lease was personally guaranteed by me when she couldn't qualify solo her website hosting professional licensing fees, marketing budget, all that expensive office furniture. She loved showing off to clients even her membership in the Regional Real Estate Association. Everything was paid through automatic transfers from my business account that she naively assumed came from some family trust fund our grandfather had established decades ago. Madison was absolutely the worst-case scenario, though, and Alex was shaking his head as we documented everything. Not only was I covering her rent and car payments, but her credit cards were tied directly to my business accounts as consulting expenses. She was technically listed as a brand consultant for my company, which was just a clever way to funnel her money legally without tax complications. Her health insurance phone plan, gym membership, grocery delivery service, clothing allowances, even her subscription boxes for makeup and wine were all flowing through my company like she was some kind of dependent child rather than a grown adult. Dude, Alex says, reviewing our notes. You didn't just help them out occasionally. You basically adopted 3 financially irresponsible adults. By Sunday evening, we had a comprehensive plan. Alex dubbed it Operation Reality Check. Here's the thing he explains. They want to disown you. Perfect. But they don't get to keep all the benefits of being your family while treating you like garbage. Time to cut every single cord. Monday morning, I started making calls. Alex insisted on being present for what he called the Great Financial Disconnection. We set up in my home office Monday morning with our laptops, coffee, and what Alex called our productivity playlist, mostly motivational business podcasts. All right, brother, Alex says, let's start with the straightforward stuff and work our way up to nuclear options. First, call my business insurance agent, removed Dad's trucks from our fleet coverage effective immediately. Next, the commercial credit line that financed his equipment. I requested an immediate review of all authorized users and had his access terminated. How long until he notices this one? Alex asks when he tries to purchase materials. Tomorrow morning. Beautiful. Next up was Mom's situation called the Commercial Real Estate Management Company and terminated my personal guarantee on her office lease. Then I canceled every single automatic transfer to her business accounts. She's going to panic when that rent notice arrives, Alex says with satisfaction. But Madison's financial setup was the most complex. Alex was reading from our list. Car payment, rent, health insurance, phone service. gym membership, grocery delivery, credit cards. Jake, you were basically this woman's sugar daddy. I systematically canceled everything. Car payment authorization, health insurance coverage, phone plan, even her streaming service subscriptions that were somehow tied to my accounts. By noon Monday, Alex and I had methodically removed my financial backing from their entire existence. But we weren't finished. Time for the nuclear option. Alex announces the business partnerships. Here's what they never understood. Dad's concrete business was technically structured as a subsidiary of my construction company for tax optimization purposes. Mom's real estate agency was operating under my business license. Through some complicated arrangement my accountant had set up, Madison's luxury lifestyle brand was actually just a DBA registration under my company's umbrella. If they want to disown you, Alex points out, they lose all the business protections and advantages too. I contacted my business attorney and initiated the process of dissolving every shared business entity. By Wednesday, they'd all be operating as completely independent businesses with zero connection to me or my company. How long until they realize what's happening? Alex asks. Probably when they try to place orders tomorrow and discover their credit has been terminated. But the real masterstroke was Alex's suggestion about the house. See, my parents live in this beautiful suburban home they purchased 5 years ago. What they conveniently forgot is that I co-signed the mortgage because their credit scores weren't sufficient for the loan amount they wanted. Technically, I owned 50% equity in their primary residence. You could force a partition sale, Alex explains. Make them buy you out or sell the house. That seems pretty nuclear, brother. They told you that you're not their son at this point. Why should you care? I contacted my attorney and began the legal process of demanding my equity stake in the house in Texas. I could force a partition sale if we couldn't reach an agreement on terms by Wednesday afternoon. Their entire financial ecosystem was about to collapse, and they had absolutely no idea what was coming. You know what the best part is, Alex says as we're finishing up the paperwork. They're going to blame each other initially. Madison's going to assume Dad stopped paying her bills. Dad's going to think Mom messed up the business accounts. It's going to be complete chaos. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing nonstop. Thursday at 6:47 a.m., my phone starts exploding with missed calls. Madison, Dad, even Mom. But the first actual message I received was a text from Madison. At 7:23 a.m., my car got repossessed from the parking garage. What did you do? Alex was already at my office with coffee and breakfast sandwiches, ready for what he called the fireworks display. She thinks it's your fault her car got repossessed. He asks, reading over my shoulder. I mean, technically it is. I stopped authorizing the payments. That's absolutely perfect. Just perfect. By 8 a.m., the calls were relentless. I put my phone on speaker so Alex could listen. First call was from Dad. Jake, what's going on? The lumber supplier called and said our credit line is suspended. They won't deliver materials for the Morrison project. I let him talk for about 30s before hanging up. Stone cold. Alex says, clearly impressed. Next call was Mom. Jake, honey, there's been some kind of mistake with the office rent. The property manager says I'm behind on payments, but that's impossible because... Click? You're getting really good at this, Alex observes, but Madison's call was the most entertaining. She was actually crying real tears going on about how her landlord was threatening eviction and her credit cards weren't working. And how could I do this to her? Madison, I finally interrupted. You told me I was selfish and not to call you back. So I'm not calling you back. I'm simply doing exactly what you requested. That's not what I meant. And you know it. Actually, it's precisely what you meant. You and Dad made it crystal clear that I'm not family anymore, so I'm acting accordingly. Alex was giving me encouraging thumbs-up gestures throughout the conversation. Jake, please, I need help. I don't understand what's happening to me. What's happening is you're experiencing life without family financial support. You wanted independence from your selfish brother. So congratulations on achieving that goal. I hung up and Alex started laughing. Dude, she genuinely has no concept of how money works. She literally thinks bills just magically pay themselves. Around 10 a.m., things escalated significantly. My attorney called with an update. Jake, I just received a very interesting phone call from someone claiming to be your father. He's demanding I cease all legal action immediately. What did you tell him? I informed him that I don't take instructions from people who aren't my clients. Alex nearly choked on his coffee. Your attorney is savage. By noon, the real panic was setting in. Mom actually showed up at my office building, what she'd never done in 7 years of my business operating. My assistant called me Jake. There's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your mother. She seems quite upset. Tell her I'm unavailable and she needs to schedule an appointment through proper channels. She's insisting it's an emergency. Tell her emergencies require being family. and I was recently informed I'm not family anymore. Alex was thoroughly enjoying every moment of this. Brother, you're absolutely stone cold. I'm genuinely impressed. But the absolute highlight came around 2 p.m. when Madison showed up at my house with suitcases crying hysterically. Jake, they evicted me. I have nowhere to go. Hotels exist for situations like this. I don't have money for a hotel. Then perhaps you should contact your family for assistance. You are my family. Actually, according to Dad's text message, I'm not. So you might want to figure out alternative arrangements. Alex was watching from my living room window, trying not to laugh out loud. That evening, all three of them appeared at my house together. Dad was carrying a bottle of wine like he was coming to a social dinner party. Son, he starts. I'm not your son. Remember, you made that very clear in writing. Look, we need to discuss this business situation. There's no business situation to discuss. There's just you dealing with the natural consequences of your choices. Alex opened my front door before I could stop him. Hey, folks. Jake's pretty busy right now, but I'd be happy to take a message. The expressions on their faces were absolutely priceless. By Friday morning, the situation had escalated to full crisis mode for them. Alex came over early with breakfast in his laptop. Brother, you've got to see this. He says, pulling up Madison's Instagram account. She'd posted this long sob story about family betrayal and learning hard lessons about trust and independence. The comment section was brutal. People calling her out for being spoiled, asking why a 28-year-old needed family funding for basic living expenses. She's getting absolutely roasted. Alex laughs. Look at this comment. Maybe try getting an actual job instead of posting selfies all day. But the real entertainment came when my phone rang around 9 a.m. It was Dad, but his tone was completely different from previous calls. Jake, son, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. No misunderstanding whatsoever. You clearly stated I'm not your son. I'm simply respecting your decision. I was angry. I didn't actually mean Dad. You sent me a text saying I'm not your son, then had Mom deliver a written note telling me I'm not welcome at family events. Those aren't words you say in anger. Those are calculated decisions Alex was making. Encouraging. Keep going. Gestures behind his laptop. Look, can we just sit down and have a rational conversation about this? Your mother's extremely upset. My mother. I thought I wasn't part of the family anymore. Long pause. Jake, what do you want us to do here? Nothing. I want you to do absolutely nothing. You made your choice. Now experience the consequences. I hung up and Alex was grinning ear to ear. Dude, he called you like 6 times in that conversation. They're definitely feeling the financial pressure. Around 11 a.m., Mom called crying actual tears, which I'd maybe witnessed twice in my entire adult life. Jake, the office lease is in default. I could lose everything I've worked for. That sounds like a challenging business situation. You don't understand. This is my life's work. Mom, with respect, your life's work has been funded by me for the past 3 years. Maybe it's time to discover if it can actually function independently. Jake, please, I'm begging you. Begging who? Exactly, I'm not family, remember. But the absolute masterpiece came when Madison called around 2 p.m., completely hysterical. Jake, I'm staying in a Motel 6. Do you understand how humiliating this is for me? I wouldn't know. I've never needed family funding for my housing arrangements. Come on, you know I can't afford Madison. You're 28 years old. The fact that you can't afford basic housing isn't my problem to solve. What am I supposed to do? Get employment. A job, Jake. I'm an influencer. I have a personal brand. Alex was dying laughing in the background. Ask her how much her brand actually pays per hour. He whispers, Madison, exactly how much does your influencer brand pay you monthly? Extended silence. That's not the point. No, that's precisely the point. You've been living off family money while pretending to be a successful businesswoman. Now you get to discover if your business model actually works. That evening, Alex and I were having coffee on my back patio when all 3 of them showed up again. This time they looked like they'd been crying for hours. Jake, Dad starts. We're sorry, we made a terrible mistake. We want to make this right. Okay, what is it? Making it right looked like they exchanged uncertain glances. Mom spoke up. We want you to be part of our family again. Cool, what's changed since Tuesday? More confused glances. What do you mean? Madison asks. I mean, 3 days ago, you decided I was selfish and not worth being related to because I couldn't fund Madison's $85,000 life coaching program. What's different now? Silence. Let me guess, Alex interjects. What's different is now you're facing the reality of cutting off your family bank account. That's not fair, Mom protests. Isn't it, though, I ask, because if I was truly family, if you genuinely wanted me around for who I am, rather than what I provide financially, wouldn't you have had this conversation before your bills started bouncing? Dad attempted a different approach. Son, we know you've been generous over the years, generous dad. I've given you people almost $1 million over 5 years. I've co-signed loans, guaranteed leases, and basically subsidized your entire lifestyles. That's not generosity. That's financial enabling. We didn't ask you to do all that, Madison says defensively. Alex and I both started laughing. Madison, I said you literally contacted me twice monthly asking for money. You absolutely asked. The conversation continued for another hour, but it became clear they still didn't understand the fundamental issue. They weren't sorry for how they treated me, they were sorry about the consequences of their treatment. After they left, Alex and I sat back down with our coffee. So, what's the plan now, brother? Now I let them figure out what family actually means when it's not based on financial transactions. The weekend came and Alex convinced me to attend our friend Tyler's barbecue. You need to get out and socialize, man. Plus, I want to see if any of them show up groveling. Sure enough, around 3 p.m., while we're grilling burgers, my phone starts ringing. Alex sees the caller ID and announces to the entire party, "It's Madison. Everyone be quiet." "This is going to be entertaining," I answered on speaker. "Jake, I need to talk to you privately. It's really important. I'm at a barbecue with friends. You know people who actually enjoy my company." "Jake, I'm serious. I'm in genuine trouble here." "What kind of trouble?" I borrowed money from someone and they want immediate repayment." Alex raises his eyebrows. "How much money, Madison?" "Who is that?" "That's Alex. Remember him? My business partner and best friend, who you've never bothered to learn the name of despite knowing him for 10 years, Jake. I borrowed $15,000 and the person wants it back by Monday. Or they're not going to. Going to what they say. They're going to expose me on social media. It'll destroy my influencer reputation." The entire barbecue party is listening now. Tyler's girlfriend Jessica speaks up. "Wait, she borrowed $15,000 to maintain her Instagram image. Madison must have heard her." "Who said that, Jake?" "Who are you with?" "I'm with my actual friends, Madison. You know people who spend time with me even when I'm not paying for everything?" "Jake, please. I just need what money from someone who's not your family?" Long pause. "You're still my brother." "According to Dad's text message, I'm not." "That was a mistake." "No, Madison. The mistake was me thinking that financially supporting you people made us closer as a family. All it did was make you entitled and ungrateful." Alex gestured for the phone. "Madison, this is Alex. I've got a question for you." "What?" "When's Jake's birthday? What kind of question is that?" "Just answer it. When's your brother's birthday?" Silence. "How about his wife's name?" "What's Jake's wife's name, Madison?" More silence. One more. "What's Jake's company called? The business that's been funding your lifestyle for years?" "I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant because you don't actually know anything about your brother's life, except that he gives you money. You don't know his birthday, his wife's name, or even what he does for work. But you definitely know his bank account routing number." Alex handed me back the phone. "Madison, Alex is absolutely right. You want to be family? Tell me 3 things about my life that don't involve money." The silence stretched on for nearly 30s before she hung up. Tyler's girlfriend Jessica shook her head. "That's ice cold. She really doesn't know your birthday." "It was last month," I replied. "She forgot completely, but she remembered to ask for money." 2 weeks later, Alex added, "Sunday morning I woke up to 17. Missed calls from Dad. The voicemail was desperate. 'Jake, we need to meet today. It's urgent. The businesses just call me back immediately.' I returned his call around noon. 'Dad, what's the emergency? The Morrison contract fell through. We can't secure materials, can't make payroll. And now they're threatening to sue us for breach of contract.' That sounds like a serious business problem, Jake. I could lose everything." "Dad, with respect, you told me I wasn't your son. Why would someone who's not your son concern himself with your business problems because you're a good man? And you know this isn't just about me. I've got 8 employees depending on Dad. You're attempting to guilt trip the wrong person. You want to know what a good man does? A good man doesn't disown his son over money. A good man doesn't send threatening notes through intermediaries. A good man doesn't try to manipulate his child into being a family bank. Long pause. What do you want from us, Jake? I want you to figure out who you are without my financial support. I want Madison to get legitimate employment. I want Mom to operate a business that actually generates profit. And I want all of you to understand that family relationships aren't financial transactions. And if we do that, then maybe we can discuss being family again. But not before that afternoon. Mom showed up at my house alone. Alex was over working on some project proposals, but when he saw her pull up, he grabbed his laptop and headed to the kitchen. I'll be right here if you need backup, he said. Mom looked like she'd aged 5 years in a single week. Jake, can we talk, just you and me? Sure. We sat on my front porch. She was quiet for a long time before she started speaking. Your father's pride is going to destroy this family, she said finally. Dad's pride didn't send me that text. Dad's pride didn't write that note. You all made this decision collectively. We were angry. No, you were entitled. There's a significant difference. She started crying. Jake, I know we messed up terribly, but you're destroying us. Mom, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not building it anymore. There's a difference. Your sister's sleeping in her car now. Her choice. She could get employment. Find a roommate, move somewhere more affordable. Instead, she's choosing to be homeless rather than work. She doesn't know how to work, Jake. We never taught her those skills. That was the first honest thing any of them had said throughout this entire situation. Then maybe it's time she learned. Mom sat there crying quietly for a while before she got up to leave. At the door, she turned back. I love you, Jake. Whatever happens, I want you to know that I love you too, Mom. But love and money aren't the same thing. Took me 32 years to figure that out. 3 weeks later, Alex and I were finishing up a client meeting when my assistant buzzed the intercom. Jake, there's a woman here who says she's your sister. She looks different. Alex grinned. This should be interesting. Madison walked into my office looking like she hadn't slept properly in days. Her usual perfect Instagram appearance was completely gone. No makeup hair and a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a basic t-shirt instead of designer. Everything, Jake. I got a job. Alex looked up from his laptop. Congratulations. What kind of employment? I'm working at a marketing firm downtown. It's entry level, but they said, if I work hard, I can advance. I gestured to a chair. That's excellent. Madison, how's it going? It's really hard. Much harder than I expected. I had no idea how much I didn't know about actual work. She paused. Jake, I owe you a serious apology. For what? Specifically for everything. For treating you like a personal bank instead of a brother. For not caring about your life unless I needed something from you. For not even knowing your birthday. She took a deep breath. Alex was completely right. I didn't know anything about you except that you had money. Alex nodded approvingly. This represents genuine progress. I've been attending therapy, she continued. The therapist helped me understand that I was. What's the word parasitic? I was living off you without giving anything back to the relationship. For what changed your perspective, I asked. Honestly, being completely broke. Turns out when you can't afford food, you start questioning your life choices pretty quickly. And Dad? Mom? Dad's business is struggling, but he's trying to make it work without loans or credit extensions. Had to sell some equipment, let go of 2 employees. Mom closed the expensive office and is working from home. She's actually making money for the first time in years. And how do you all feel about me now? Madison looked down. We understand why you did it. We're not happy about the consequences, but we understand your reasoning. Dad keeps saying he should have seen it coming. Alex leaned forward. Madison. What's Jake's wife's name, Sarah? She's a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. You guys met in college but didn't start dating until after graduation. She's originally from Oklahoma. When's his birthday? April 15th. Same day as tax day, which he says is fitting since he's always worried about business finances. What does his company do? Commercial construction projects. You started it because you were frustrated with how inefficient construction management was. When you worked for other contractors. Alex looked genuinely impressed. Not bad. How did you learn all that information? I asked questions. Turns out Jake's actually pretty interesting when you're not just trying to get money from him. We talked for another hour. Madison told me about her job, how she'd had to learn basic adult skills like budgeting and cooking, how she'd sold most of her designer possessions to pay rent, how she'd realized that her influencer brand was just an expensive hobby with no real income. Jake, I want to ask you something, and I promise this isn't about money, okay? Do you think? Could we try being brother and sister again? Like actual siblings who talk about life and spend time together sometimes? I looked at Alex, who nodded encouragingly. Madison, you want to know the truth? Yes, I never wanted to stop being your brother. I just got tired of being your bank. She started crying, not the manipulative crying from before, but genuine tears of remorse. I'm so sorry, Jake. I'm sorry for taking advantage of you. I'm sorry for not appreciating what you did. And I'm really sorry for not being a better sister. Madison, the fact that you're here, that you got employment, that you learned my wife's name, that means something significant. Alex cleared his throat. This is touching it all, but what about your parents? They want to apologize too, but Dad's too proud and Mom's too embarrassed. They know they messed up badly. Tell them something for me, I said. Tell them I'm willing to have a conversation. Not about money, not about business, just about being family. But they need to understand that being family means caring about each other as people, not just financial resources. Madison nodded. I'll tell them exactly that. After she left, Alex and I sat in my office quietly for a while. You think they actually learned their lesson? He asked. Madison definitely did. Mom probably did. Dad, we'll see. You going to help them if they really change? Maybe someday, but they need to prove they can stand independently first. Independence builds character. Alex laughed. Brother, you basically gave your entire family a masterclass in consequences. It's like you're the world's most expensive life coach. A month later, Dad called me. His voice was different, quieter, more humble than I'd ever heard it. Son, I owe you an apology. A real one. I'm listening. I treated you like a resource instead of a person. I took your generosity for granted and then punished you when it wasn't enough. That's not what fathers do. What do fathers do, Dad? They support their sons even when they can't help financially. They're proud of their kids' success instead of jealous of it. They say thank you instead of demanding more. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked. Maybe for the first time since I was a teenager. He told me about his struggles, his fears, his regrets. I told him about the pressure I'd felt, how I'd lost myself trying to be everyone's financial solution. Jake, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not for the money, but for having the strength to walk away. When we treated you wrong. Dad, I never wanted to walk away from family. I just wanted to be treated like family instead of like a business. I understand that now. 6 months later, we had Thanksgiving dinner together for the first time since the incident. Madison brought her boyfriend, a guy she met at work who had no idea she came from money. Mom cooked everything herself instead of catering it. Dad talked about his business struggles openly instead of pretending everything was perfect. And Alex was there too because he'd basically become family through all of this. You know what's funny, Madison said during dessert? I'm actually happier now than I was before. Working for my own money feels better than having it handed to me. That's because accomplishment feels better than entitlement, Alex said. Jake tried to tell you that for years. Mom raised her glass to Jake for teaching us the difference between being supported and being spoiled. Dad added, and for having the courage to do what needed to be done even when it hurt. As we sat there, I realized something profound. My family was smaller now. Some relatives still thought I was too harsh, and a few family friends had taken sides, but the people at that table were there because they wanted to be. Not because they needed something. Alex was right all those months ago. Sometimes you have to burn down the old structure to build something better. And sometimes the best thing you can do for people you love is stop solving their problems for them. The golden boy learned to say no, and it saved his family from themselves.